This is our apple cider vinegar from last year. We're just into the apple harvesting season again. We're about to start with another batch, but we've still got loads left from last year. This was really easy to make. Easiest thing you possibly ever make. There's a lot of rubbish out there about how to make this stuff and how to make it really complicated. No need. This is the simplest thing in the world. It's just apples, water and thyme. Chop the apples, put it in the water, leave it for a month, strain the material away, keep that, age the liquid for a month, apple cider vinegar. That's it in essence. If you want a longer version of that, keep watching. Today we're making apple cider vinegar. Now we use a lot of apple cider vinegar. There's all sorts of health claims about the stuff. Some of it's actually been borne out in trials. Some of it sounds a bit far-fetched, but it's amazing stuff. We use a lot of vinegar. It's one of the things we use in the laundry a lot. If we get self-sufficient for this, that's all to the good. Now we've been making this stuff for years, but we've been making it in jars like this, relatively small batches. There's loads of instructions for how to do this online. This is just how we do it. Now this is the last from last year's that I've kept back as a little bit of an inoculant, so I can use that as a booster for starting the new batch, but it's really not necessary. This was started without an apple cider vinegar start. If you want to, you can buy the starter, and this is cheap as chips. This is from Lidl, you know, it's not expensive stuff. And that is organic apple cider vinegar with the mother, half a litre. But this stuff, I mean, you can buy, you know, artisanal, just, you know, really expensive stuff up to, you know, crazy amounts of money. This that we're making here is as good as it gets. I mean, you could say, you know, organic, regenerative. We're not actually registered organic. Our standard is higher than organic, but still, you know, for the sake of putting a label on it. So, these are apples from our own trees. We've also had a load in here that were just windfalls from other trees, from other people's. They're not all ours, but this is the last of them. And you can see these aren't the best ones. So that's got some fly damage on it, some insect damage. Let's have a look. But you can see once I take that section off, I chuck that and just chuck it in the scraps. If you're in a saner country, you can use that for animal feed. It's actually illegal in this country because it's been into the kitchen. Don't get me started, but anyway. So it's just basically take the apple, I chop it up roughly, and I throw it in a bucket. And you can see that is a bucket that's about, well, just over halfway full. I've just got these last few to do. We've settled out all the best apples that are eating, so we've taken out some of them. Everything else, so all the damaged stuff, all the bruised stuff, all the windfalls, all of those have been chopped and put in. I made a batch last week, I made a start on it. That is this lot here. I'll open this carefully, and basically all I've done is, again, I've got a load of apples. I've filled it pretty much to the top. These trays here are actually from a food dehydrator, but they so closely fit inside the barrel, and they've got, in the bucket rather, and they got the holes in. They're perfect. But you could use, you know, whatever you found. It's just this occurred to me that it would be ideal, and we don't really use this dehydrator much anymore. We tend to use the Excalibur one. But you can see that that rises right up because, of course, the apples float and forces it up. But it will actually go lower and submerge. Oh, and then that comes up in the middle. But you get the idea. It submerges all of the apples. There we go. So they're all below the surface of the water, so they're not going to turn orange, they're not going to oxidize, they're not going to spoil. This will be left for a month. Doesn't matter if you leave it longer. I've gone 6-7 weeks previously, and that's just clipped on there loosely. I'm not clipping it down all the way around. There's gaps on the front and the back because you need a little bit of air exchange, because otherwise what will happen is the pressure will build up as it gives off carbon dioxide, and it'll start to bulge the top of the thing, and it'll find its own way out. It will pop the lid, but I'd rather it didn't, so we just let it do that. So we set that aside. Now, we could put it somewhere warm if we wanted to. It'd, you know, hurry it up a little bit, but because we've got the mass heater running, the interior temperature of the house isn't bad, so I'm not concerned about it. That'll be fine. These buckets we got on eBay very cheaply. I think it was, I can't remember how much. We got like 24 of them. They're very useful things. We use them for all kinds of stuff. These previously had molasses in. They came from, I think, a sugar refinery. So there's, when you first open up, there's a bit of an odor coming off them, and it's just the molasses. You know, it smells, you know, an awful lot like treacle. It's ideal because if there's any sugar residue in it, it doesn't matter. It's not going to cause any harm. It's just going to accelerate things, if anything. But they've been really well cleaned out. I've been really pleased with them. But these are food grade buckets, and that's key. You know, you don't want to just put this into any old thing, because it's going to be turning into vinegar. It is an acid, and it can, you know, leach chemicals and all sorts of things from the plastic itself. This is food grade plastic. You don't want to use metal for this, because of course acid will attack metal and you end up with either rust, or if it's aluminium it'll start to dissolve. Yeah, it's pretty much there. So at this point I just need to get these things cut, put them into the barrel. I keep calling it a barrel, into the bucket, and then we're on to the next stage. Now that one, you can see it's got a little bit of insect damage, so we'll chop that off. You can see it's gone a bit deeper, so I'll take it off, and that the rest of it's clear. So I'll just chop that. That's perfectly good. That goes in the scraps. So this is a way of making use of apples that otherwise they're not particularly useful. So seeds are going in, stalks are going in, skins are going in. You know, this is not making, you know, fine cider for drinking. This is just literally chopping it up. What we're doing is we're exposing more surface area to the water, so we get a better extraction. So we get a better processing of it. But we're almost there. There we go. This has been a lot of apples. They haven't all been done in the kitchen. I mean, obviously this has just been set up today for filming. I don't normally have a table in the middle of the room. So here's another one with insect damage. Because again, these have been grown with no pesticides. They've had minimal watering. They've had minimal fertility. In fact, these trees, yeah, go on.
Apples that have been attacked by insects are more nutritious.
That's true. Plants generally that have been attacked by insects are more nutritious. Yeah, these trees, in fact, were free. These are the trees that are next to the urinal at the top of the field in the customer's bit for the... that's the last one. That's it, we're done. So the next thing is to level that out. Some of these are a bit clumpy still because I threw them in, so we'll just break them up. And that's it. So at this point I need to submerge them in water. But the water we have out of the tap here, even though it comes from a local loch and it, you know, tastes fantastic and all the rest of it, it does have chlorine added. This is a biological process. We don't want anything that's going to have chlorine in it, because it'll just kill that stone dead. So we've got water that has been sitting. This has actually been about a week, but 24 hours works. This is just water that's been drawn some time ago, at least 24 hours, and the chlorine just evaporates out of it. It's very volatile. And then we just pour that in until we cover the apples. Now when we're almost there, what will happen is the apples will start to float, so we'll never actually, you know, completely cover them. That's close. Just get a bit more. There we go. Once you get, see, the apples just rose up. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put one of these screens on. I'll push that down. It's not quite submerged, so I'm going to add a bit more. So I don't want to use too much, because I want to make as strong a vinegar as I can. So I don't want to use too much water. That's actually pretty good. So all the ones that are trying to float, I'll just tuck them under the edge. And that's it. Cool. The odd seed is floating up. I'm not worried about the seeds. Usually we'd you know, not worry at all. I've actually had quite a few seeds drop out of this because I've had so many apples I've been processing. Those seeds we've actually set aside because we grow them out and we grow them into trees. There's a whole other video on that. But that's done. So at this point I just need to wait to put it down. So what I'm going to go with, because it's right here, is a jar of apple cider vinegar. And that'll hold down... yeah, not quite, because it won't hold down that side. Actually, that is keeping it under. Let's have a look. That would actually work. Let's see if the lid will go on. I like the idea of double stacking apple cider vinegar. I'm going to call that a win. So instead of having one of the jars out on the side, it's in here. So it's the same difference. So I'm finished with that now. So between these two, this one being full, this is a 25 litre bucket. So I'd say we've got about 35 litres of the apples and the water in together. And obviously we're going to have to drain this in time, and it'll probably give us 15-20 litres of apple cider vinegar by the time we're finished. But this is just the first stage. So what we need to do now is we need to leave this, and that'll take about roughly 4 or 5 weeks. At that point it'll need straining, and then it goes through the second process. Now you get a lot of people will add sugar to this, and it probably does make it ferment slightly more quickly, but it's just not necessary, you know. And if I can do it without adding sugar, I'm going to. So we're not adding sugar to it. We've never added sugar to our apple cider vinegar, so we'll just let this do its thing for a month, and then we'll come back and we'll show the next stage. So it's been well over 6 weeks, to be honest. It's been more like 2 months at this point, but it's fine. It's a very forgiving process. So that's the one I've already drained, because yeah, it was a full bucket. I wasn't going to do that on camera because I'm filming this on my own. This is the half full bucket. This is going to be much easier to use while I'm filming, so I might even just about manage this on my own. So simple colander, just so I don't have too many apple bits go through, and then I just pour the lot through. And that is done. What I'll actually do is I'll leave this to sit for maybe an hour or so, and then I'll give it another quick drain, because there's still a lot of liquid in the fruit itself that tends to drain out and then sit in the bottom of the bucket. But you can see that between the two already, that is, you know, that's a lot of apple cider vinegar. So at this point I'm going to do the same to both of these. I'm going to give them probably an hour or two, re-drain them just to get the last little bit that's just, you know, drained out of the fruit, to get that into here as well, because we want to get as much as possible. Then I'm basically just going to drop the lid on top just like that. I'm not even going to snap it down, and I'm going to give that another 4 to 6 weeks. But at that point it doesn't really matter. I'll give it a couple of months before I'd probably bottle it up, but at that point it's effectively done. And that was that. A couple of months later we started, you know, tapping it off a little bit at a time and filling up the bottle. And this is it. This is the bottle. It's still the same as last year. I've just filled it up for the purpose of this video. It's still going. It's phenomenal stuff. We're actually late September now. We're about to start harvesting the apples in the next couple of days ahead of a storm that's coming in. But yeah, starting the next batch, which of course it's a lot quicker now because we can use, you know, this as an inoculant. We also have a really amazing mother that developed on the surface of it while it was going through its you know, aging process, and that's really going to accelerate it, because, you know, that is, you know, the mother culture. We can just use a piece of that into, you know, each of the buckets that we're processing, and it'll, you know, become, you know, even better, because we're starting off with a live culture that, you know, is, you know, evolved in our environment with the material that we're giving it, because that's going to be fairly consistent. So yeah, that's it. Easy as that. Apple cider vinegar, apples, water, time.